Mexican farm workers. This is what the media shows you. This is what the media does not.
Farm work is actually the most dangerous occupation that's open to kids in the U.S. in terms of fatalities. Kids are working with dangerous and sharp tools, doing work that may require them to be bent down for hours. I've talked to kids who've worked in 14 states around the U.S., and kids told me about the toll that this work takes on their bodies.
Demand for Mexican labor increased greatly during the beginning of World War I due to less men on the home front able to work and because less people were migrating from Europe to the United States. The Immigration Act of 1917 allowed foreign workers to come in and work on American farms, and ultimately became known as the first Bracero program. This first guest worker program created 70,000 open jobs for migrant workers. Although the war ended in 1918, the program was extended until 1922. Only an estimated 35,000 of these 70,000 returned to Mexico after the war, thus resulting in large numbers of undocumented Mexican citizens in the United States. During the Great Depression, jobs were scarce and most couldn't find work, so more than 500,000 Mexican-American workers were deported or pressured to leave. The U.S. government passed labor laws that excluded the black or Mexican farm workers and prevented their representation in regulations like overtime pay, workers' comp, or child labor. On the onset of World War II, the Bracero program was jump-started. Once again, the United States imported temporary laborers from Mexico to work in the fields and on railroads. Because of farm owners profiting off of cheap labor, Mexican farm workers once again remained in the United States, thus resulting in another wave of illegal immigrants across the border due to expired visas.
The Chicano Movement was a nationwide movement by Latinos in the U.S. in the 1960s. The movement made aware the issues and injustice Latinos faced while living in the United States. Many unions and activist groups were formed throughout this decade. One of these activist unions was the NFWA. The NFWA, or the National Farm Workers Association, was founded in 1962 by Chavez and Dolores Huerta. The pair fought against the agribusiness in the United States with a platform of nonviolence and played a hand in organizing thousands of migrant laborers in an attempt to fight for a living wage and just working conditions, unlike the conditions that were previously being worked under. The union helped raise awareness of the situation at hand, but didn't achieve its goals it had for the people. As mentioned earlier, the Bracero program was a major aspect of the Chicano movement and greatly impacted migrant farm workers' lives. During 1964, however, the program ended because it created abuse among the people it was supposed to help. Former Bracero workers fought and are still fighting to get the 10% mandatory reductions from their wages that they were supposed to receive when their contracts ended in 1964 after they returned to Mexico. The Chicano movement as a whole drew national attention to the migrant farm workers' struggles, including their pay and their working conditions. Though the people like Chavez and Dolores Huerta, the groundwork was laid for other farm worker unions to begin forming in the 1960s. Though the movement brought about awareness of the situation, the United States as a whole ignored the situation and not much was officially accomplished.
Contrary to popular belief, migrant farm workers are still very common today. Many immigrants have traveled all across the United States to find jobs, and they still face poor working conditions and low pay. The median income for migrant workers is about $7,500 a year, and many are eventually forced to return to their home countries due to low pay. As farm technology advances, these jobs can be even more difficult to obtain as manual labor is replaced by machinery.
A plane flew over the field and began spraying on the field, and I didn't know what the spray contained or what it was. The drift was coming towards our field because it was windy, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just water that's making the crops grow better.
Now, pesticide exposure isn't good for any farm workers, but it's especially bad for children whose bodies are still developing. Farm worker families are typically very, very poor, and kids told me that they worked in order to put food on the table or to fix the family's truck or to pay the phone bill. Kids are working because their families really need the money.
They also must deal with a language barrier, as most of them have immigrated from Spanish-speaking countries. Not being able to communicate makes it impossible for them to integrate into communities and makes it easy for employers to take advantage of them and their labor. They are often tied to the employee who first brings them into the United States and will not report any injustice for fear of losing their job. Although the UFW was able to bring an end to the Bracero program, many things remain the same even since the Chicano movement, and these workers still face the same manipulation as Bracero workers.